Yes.
Alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So, what is meditation? I'd like to start off, like, if everybody can stop what they're doing and just have a really quick experience of trying this out. Just when I say go, what I'd like you to do is to close your eyes and take a couple of really slow, deep breaths and really pay attention to what it feels like to take this breath, like how your chest expands and so on, like, you know, what the breath feels like. So really slow breaths, and we're going to do this just right now. So close your eyes and take a couple of deep breaths. Right, you can open your eyes. So this is what meditation is, essentially. So congratulations, you've just had maybe your first experience of meditation, or maybe not the first. And that's what meditation basically is. It's consciously directing your attention instead of letting it randomly wander everywhere. Now, some of you may have found it's really easy to stay entirely focused on your breath for like two long deep breaths, about 20 seconds or so. Others may have found that even this short time for 2 breaths, your mind wandered a bit and you thought about lunch or about a climb that you need to get back to, or just noticed your foot was itching, or like, you know, something happened that distracted you from your breath. And whichever one you were, welcome. Both of those experiences, having your mind wander or staying focused, are part of meditation. And noticing when those things are happening, gaining awareness of it, and also gaining some measure of control over it, is what meditation is all about. Now, if you start trying to meditate with minimal guidance, what you probably try to do is to focus your attention on something, and probably your breath. The breath is often used because it's something that's under your control, but it also kind of happens by itself. It's always changing and cyclical, so there's a constant source of newness in it, and at the same time, it's kind of boring. And that's part of the point. Because most of us are able to focus our attention on, say, the feeling of aliveness when we're zipping around a roller coaster, and, like, you know, the intensity of like what's happening is clearly captivating. Or maybe we're doing something really interesting, like reading a really good book or watching a really good movie. And in those cases, we find it quite easy to keep our attention completely focused on one thing because it's really, really interesting. But most of the time, we don't have such captivating things happening around us, which is probably a good thing, otherwise we'd be completely terrified all the time, maybe, if it was roller coaster time all the time. And instead we spend most of our time in the mind-wandering mode, where we just notice lots of different things happening. Now, when our minds are wandering, it means our attention is basically scattered everywhere. It's kind of drifting around, looking for something to latch onto. And this is actually a really helpful process that we've evolved. It means that we're constantly scanning over environment for things of interest. So it could be a new source of food, or the sound of a tiger approaching. So from an evolutionary standpoint, this is really great, and not something we're trying to eliminate, this process of paying attention to our environment and noticing things that stand out and letting our attention drift to those. But practically, this wandering attention can get in the way of a lot of things we try to do. So work, for example, we might be distracted by Slack messages while doing a tedious claim verification or something that's kind of boring. Or also spending quality time with friends. So it might be like with a really good friend that we haven't seen for a couple of years, but spending time on our mobile or thinking about something else we want to do later and not really being there with them. Or even it can distract us from what's just going on inside of us. Like, there's a lot of great tools that help us to be together with each other better, that depend on actually paying attention to what's going on inside of us. Like, for example, NVC, nonviolent communication, requires you to identify your feelings and, even harder, your needs. Now, if your mind is wandering around all the time, you need to actually get it quiet down and focus long enough to figure out what it is that you're feeling. And since those feelings may be subtle, it might be that you can't actually practice NVC because you get distracted before you can figure out what it is you're actually feeling. I really want to stress again that this is totally normal and not something you should beat yourself up for. And it's not just normal, we've literally evolved to be really good at constantly scanning our environment because it was a critical factor for our survival. Like noticing that tiger approaching meant that one of our ancestors managed to stay alive, and that's why we're here today. So there's a really good reason why we do this. So when you try meditating, you're working against literally millions of years of evolution, maybe tens of millions, that have added up to this magical scanning system in your head, and trying to get it to stop scanning and focus on something specific that's not at all interesting, like for example, your breath. Now, there are other benefits to meditation than just identifying your feelings to communicate non-violently. For me, those benefits include making stuff more conscious. Like when I manage to keep my focus on my breath for a while, I don't switch off my awareness of what else is happening. So I'm able to observe the other things going on in my head with a bit more distance. So I might notice that there's some sort of battle going on between two parts of me, or an argument about something I did this morning that maybe I feel both proud and shameful about. And without giving me the blank space of meditation, I wouldn't have noticed that there's this thing going on. So I find it helps me to notice what's actually going on in my head right now. I've also noticed for myself, and I'm talking about the benefits I get because everybody's going to get different benefits, I think, from meditation. And I'd be curious to hear Jaden and Catherine's answers. Well, what I've noticed as well often is that after I meditate, stuff that was kind of blocked in my subconscious seems easier to access, closer to the surface. I think I've told some people the story about how when I got after I got my tattoo, there was some kind of internal battle going on inside of me between the side of me that wanted the tattoo to be absolutely perfect, which of course it wasn't, and the other side that was okay with the tattoo being just as it was. Now, the first side was judging the second one to be sloppy, and the second side was judging the first one to be overly perfectionist. And this was going on in my subconscious, and I wasn't really aware of that, and it resulted in me feeling really drained, of energy, because obviously there was this kind of constant struggle going on, and I wasn't even aware of it. It was draining all my energy into it. And that happened until I did a meditation, which drew it closer to my conscious, and suddenly I was able to start noticing. Well, I wasn't able to notice the conflict itself right away, but I was able to notice the effects of the conflict, that I was expressing a lot of shame and anger, and I couldn't quite figure out why I was expressing shame and anger. And it took another 12 hours or so, but the meditation, the process of noticing that there was something worth noticing with the meditation that sort of brought it closer to the surface. Another unexpected benefit of meditation is to stop beating myself up for being distracted. Because one of the things you notice when you meditate is that it's just how unruly and chaotic the mind is. I like to compare it to an overexcited puppy. Someone in a one-to-one recently suggested the image of an anxious ferret instead, like going out and like trying to find stuff, anxiously trying to find things to latch onto. Now, whichever one you pick is definitely not one that's easy to control. Meditating, done well, gives you space to observe this overexcited, anxious puppy ferret. And once you see just how consciously chaotic it is, even when there's nothing interesting for it to react to, so even when you're just sitting there with your eyes closed, it's still so chaotic. Well, maybe then it's easier to forgive yourself for getting distracted by, say, Facebook notifications, which, compared to your breath, are actually quite interesting. So another thing I get is also a better sense of calm and self-awareness after I meditate. It's not surprising, I guess, because it's a practice for directing my attention. But I do find it easier to direct my attention after a meditation session. And for example, Andrew and I always do a meditation before we do the second round of culture fit when we do that, because it enables us to more easily notice what's happening both within us and in the candidate. And so we're able to be much more deliberate and less reactive. I also try to meditate a little bit, even for just a few breaths or a minute, before I meet people where I know that I need to be at my best, where I need to be really present and active, and sort of and make things happen, because I know I'll be a bit less reactive, more likely to catch myself in a reaction, and to be able to think and make a more conscious decision about what's going on if I've meditated just beforehand. Now, there's loads more benefits, I think, especially as the meditation practice gets better. And if you read, there's this book by a guy called Desa, who a few people have bought here, which I can recommend. I can put on the People and Culture channel. I think it's been posted there before. But it highlights 10 stages that you can go through, and somewhere near the top is basically kind of being in a constant state of meditative joy throughout your day. I'm not there yet, nowhere near, but basically there's benefits at every stages. But let's move on a little bit about the practice itself, and I want to talk about the earlier stages where I am, where maybe you are as well. So when we did the practice meditation earlier, we did just 2 breaths, and I encourage you on feeling the breath, to focus on the feeling of the breath in your whole body, because that's easier to keep your focus on. And typically, one of the things you learn in meditation is to control both the thing you're focusing on and how narrowly you're focusing on it. So that meditation book, like one of the ways that you go through the stages is also by learning to focus the breath more narrowly. But the way it suggests starting a meditation, which is maybe a good starting point if you're trying to meditate, is with 4 fairly simple steps. So you start by sitting down somewhere comfortable, like maybe on a couch, on a pillow. Ideally, sitting with your back unsupported, because it's easier to just fall asleep while meditating if you're lying back on something. And well, I find that I can't keep my focus. I always fall asleep or like drift off if I'm lying back on something. I don't need to be lying down, just to be lying back on something stops me. Anyway, so you sit down, and first you focus on so you close your eyes and you focus on just the present moment. The sensations, the noises, the feeling of space around you. You get away from thoughts of past and future, the things you were like ruminating about, and just notice what's happening right now in the present moment, in the world of sensations. Then once you feel like you're with that, you try to narrow the focus to what's happening right now in your body, in your fingers, your toes, your head, your arms. Try to just notice all the physical sensations in your body without paying attention anymore to what's outside of you. Then you narrow this to your breath, to the feeling of air coming into your nose, down your throat, into your lungs, inflating, deflating your chest, and so focus your attention on that. And then you narrow it just down to the subtle feeling of air moving in and out of the tip of your nostrils. This last one is really hard, but there's a point to it, which is that eventually, like once you learn how to really like control the focus of your attention, there's all sorts of later benefits that come in, like this kind of meditative joy throughout the day. One of the mistakes I made as a beginning meditator, just a year ago when I was trying meditation again, was to try and just focus all my attention exclusively on my breath and not give room to anything else. And this is one of the things Chula type is really, that you have 2 kinds of focused attention and mindful awareness. So like the focused attention is like, kind of like a spotlight, and the mindful awareness is more like a floodlight that sort of encompasses everything that you're aware of in your mind and elsewhere. And meditating is about learning to work with both of those attentions, not just the focused attention. You keep your focused attention directed on the meditation object, like your breath, but then you also keep your mindful awareness switched on, so that you're aware of what else is going on. But you then just deliberately choosing to focus your focused attention on your breath, even as you notice other things going on. So for example, I might be focusing on my breath, and then a thought arises. Oh, I could do a TEDx GTF about meditation. This is actually a real example, and so that's why I'm doing this GTF today, because for the last week or so, I've had a kind of recurring distraction while meditating, where the thought comes up like, oh, I could do a GTF about meditation. And then I've reacted in 2 different ways about it. The normal way the brain works is that you kind of follow the thought, and I imagine the talk, and I think like, oh, I'll give this beginning exercise about taking some breath, and I'll talk about this and about that. And that's the way the brain normally works. And it happens sometimes during my meditation that my mind wandered into planning this GTF. And the other times I was able to become aware of this And so instead I noticed, there's a thought about doing a GTF about this. Okay, that's cool. And so I notice it, and I subconsciously keep my attention focused on my breath. And soon enough, the thought of doing a GTF fades away and is replaced by another random thoughts, because there's always just more stuff coming up in your mind. Shula Desa uses the metaphor of a ship and an anchor. And the meditation object is the anchor, is the thing that is keeping you grounded in the present. But you're in the ship, and if your awareness is also functioning, then you can notice waves coming towards you, which are the distractions that could lead you to mind wandering. And they can try and detach you from your anchor. And if you notice them in time, you can stay anchored. And sometimes you don't notice them in time, and that's okay as well. Then you congratulate yourself for noticing that your mind has wandered and put down your anchor again, wherever you are at that moment. It's really important to have both the mindful awareness and the attention, because if you have only the attention, then you have no way to notice that your mind is actually wandering. Because it's your mindful awareness that actually notices what your attention is focused on. So you have to try and balance both kinds of, this is the thing that Shula Desa calls conscious power. Basically, your conscious power is a combination of how strong your mindful awareness is and how strong your focused attention is. And the point of meditation practice is that you increase your conscious power. So you increase the ability to have both of those operating at a high level at the same time. I want to finish this talk. I'm almost done, so we can start to the Q&A soon. But I want to finish this talk with that first key practice, which is something that I got wrong when I started meditating, and which is one of the first things you learn from a good source about meditation, like that book. So when I first started meditating and my mind was wandering, and I finally noticed, I would feel shame that I didn't manage to keep my attention focused. I'd beat myself up that now bollocks, like my mind wandered again. So of course what happens when I feel shame is that I don't want to feel it again. So then I'm less likely to notice next time my mind wanders. And then I feel like meditation is just a waste of time, because I'm basically just sitting there for half an hour and daydreaming and not even noticing when my mind wanders. Shula Desa's book was the first source that I saw that pointed out explicitly that this is the wrong approach. And what you need to do to reward your mind, what we need to do when you notice that your mind is wandering is actually reward it. It seems counterintuitive, but if you think of your mind as that overexcited puppy, it sort of makes sense. So you're trying to train the puppy. So whenever it does something good, you give it a treat. So for example, you can just think some happy thoughts, or stretch your neck, or smile, which seems to release some kind of happy feeling in my body anyway. And as you keep giving the puppy a treat, whenever it notices your mind wandering, it starts to become really good at this, because it likes getting treats. And eventually you get to this point where you just notice your mind wandering as soon as it begins. And then you're ready to enter the next stage of Shula Desa, the stage 3. But I won't have time to talk about all this today. Well, actually, I didn't have time to write about all this today. Maybe I can talk for another 40 minutes, but that might be a bit boring, but I didn't have the time to write it down anyway. So, with this tip then, when you meditate and you go through this kind of process of getting your awareness focused on your breath, and you notice your mind wandering, reward yourself. Be really happy that you managed this feat that many people never manage, of noticing your mind wandering. And that's how you get better at meditating this thing, and reward yourself, and then you become better and better at it. That's the end of the notes I was able to put together. I hope this was useful, and I welcome any questions, and Jalen will come to my rescue if any of them are really good questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thanks. Thanks, Dan. I'm not sure if it works this way, but would it be possible to run like a 5-minute trial meditation period here? Or is that not something that can be done?
Right now, you mean?
Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's do it.
It is possible.
I'm in the mood. I mean, I just feel like it's a good time.
Yeah, I think we're up for it here in the office.
I'm wondering if either Catherine or Jalen feel called to lead the meditation. Because I've just been speaking for 20 minutes and I feel still kind of fuzzy, and I would quite like to follow somebody else to meditation rather than try to lead one.
I mean, the way I guide the meditation is say it starts now. So I'm happy to do pretty much nothing and hold space for it. I love it, so I'll do it. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe just as an advice for people like Jeff, like give a little bit of direction to the attention at the beginning, help them ground themselves, and then be silent. Or maybe I should do it.
I wish that I could, and but I don't know, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I really hate this. Like, part of me is like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do, and then the other overpowering part is like, no, run away, don't do that at all. So...
Something interesting to explore at some point.
if you like have it in you, Dan, I think that would be really awesome if you're able to.
Okay, I'm just going to take my jumper off because it feels quite hot after giving it off, and then I'll lead the meditation. So get ready.
Thank you.
And Jeff, I'm admiring the halo. You have a halo.
Oh, I just don't have any hair. But I'll take it. Thanks.
It looks like you have a halo there with the light behind you. I'm just admiring how you're showing up.
Yeah, that's the 3:30 a.m. glow we get over here. Meditation might turn into sleepy time.
Just sit up straight.
Oh. Okay, so are we ready to begin? Shall we begin? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So let's start by closing our eyes, taking a couple of deep breaths, quite slow. And I invite you to notice what's happening right now, whether it's a noise, the feeling of space around you, the feeling of whatever you're sitting on, or anything happening in your body. Just take the time to notice what's there. You may notice as well a need to change something, or maybe no need to change what's there. You continue to take long, slow, deep breaths. Try to start moving your attention to your body. Notice how your body feels as you breathe in and out. The feeling of your chest expanding and then going back down. I invite you to direct your attention to your shoulders. How do you feel right now as you sit here and breathe? Move your attention to your arms. How do they feel right now? Now move your attention to your forearms, your hands, how they're resting separate or against each other. Feeling of weight. I invite you to move your attention back to your chest. Feeling again rising and falling. And down towards your stomach. And then your bum, your thighs. The feeling of contact with what you're sitting on. Maybe there's a feeling of support, or maybe not. Move your attention to your legs. The feeling of your feet on the ground. I invite you to move your attention back up to your chest and then to your neck and your throat. Your jaw. How does your jaw feel? Cheeks, your face, your eyes, your forehead, the top of your head. Now I invite you to let your attention take in the whole of your body. As you breathe in and out, how does your body feel? a couple more deep breaths. When you're ready, open your eyes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job, Dan.
How do people feel after this?
Better.
Nice.
Yeah, relaxed. Still.
Wondering if the deep feeling of relaxation has wiped out all the questions that you may have had about meditation.
I have one. It doesn't feel important now. But it was when you were talking about sort of things popping up in your head and then just, you know, choosing to notice that something's popped up and then like grounding yourself again. I guess when I've done meditation before, sometimes I feel like quite frustrated about the fact that I know that that's what I'm supposed to do, but the thing that's come up in my mind feels like something really important, and like I'm scared I'm going to forget it. I don't know if there's anything to be done about that. I mean, it's just an experience that I've had. Because I have a bad memory, so I get scared that if I remember something and I don't do something about it, that it will be gone forever. I guess it's not really a question.
No, I think that's a great question. And when I first started meditation, I remember holding a similar fear. And I can share my experience of like what I did and what worked for me, and perhaps something else will, come up for you or something, But for me, part of the journey was letting go of that fear and trusting that if it's actually really important, it will pop up again. And I found that was like the call of, like when the sailors have a call of the rocks, like something that will wreck the ship or something. So part of me, I started seeing it as a muse that was calling me, and there was temptation there to stop the meditation and follow thoughts. So part of me, I started seeing this, like letting go of that call of the muse and sort of staying. And part of it, for me, I think I grew more compassionate with myself through meditation. So part of the challenge was like following that, and then feeling guilty for following that. And for me, what worked was like being more accepting of like following and the temptation, and like at times just forgetting what I was doing and following, going through the rabbit hole and sort of 5 minutes later coming back to, I sat here to meditate, now I'm daydreaming about, whatever, this thing. And also, I think a lot of, in time for me, like the humor and ease came, like that was the intention I stepped in. So like, without, as opposed to judging myself or thinking, am I doing this right or wrong? Sort of going, like the monkey mind in me, there it goes again, like I'm just on another branch and it's so appealing, like there's a banana here, and being more, there I go again, and if it's important it will show up again, and sort of bringing more ease to it and humor to it and less judgment to it. And there were times, I mean there are still times I think I still follow, something shows up and it's like so juicy, and perhaps that's the purpose of that meditation, that particular thing. So at times I just say, I'll trust this and follow it. But I think there's a sense of discipline now in me growing, like when I dedicated, like self-discipline, like ease and discipline at the same time. I don't know if this makes sense, like I'm disciplined, like this is the meditation, this is my strong intention. And at the same time, holding it with a sense of more humor and ease and acceptance and being more. So I don't know if it helps, but this is sort of what's coming up for me.
I think sometimes discipline is a hard word for us to hear. So determination is what I kind of like have started.
Yeah, like ease and discipline. So it's not like
it's not weird.
Yeah, it's not judgmental, but there's that strong intention. There's that strong container. Yet when like there's that strong goal, I know where I'm headed. And there's no judgment per se, there's more observation, there's more tracking. Like there's that, because I know what I'm putting the spotlight on when it wavers, sort of gently putting it back in. But the discipline helps me put that, and the ease and the softness and the acceptance helps me do that without creating more tension in me. Like if I'm just going, oh, there I go again, like it's creating more of what I want to let go of. So discipline in that sense, but combining that with ease and humor and acceptance, and so discipline without, I guess maybe it could be a playful whip, but without violence of any sort of,
The word I found useful for this as well is intent. So when I noticed that my mind is wondering, oh, there's a really interesting topic, then I try to reaffirm internally my intent that I'm here to meditate and that like I'm here to keep focus on my breath, and that like I actually say it out loud before I start meditating. Like that's another piece of advice from the Philadelphia book. Like to actually say out loud what you intend to do in this session, to verbalize it and like, put it into words. And so I remind myself that okay, I've chosen that I want to focus on my breath, like and renew the intent to focus on my breath whenever I notice my mind has wandered. And when I've said that before the meditation, then when it happens during the meditation that there's something really interesting that my mind has just come up with, I can more easily say, okay, like, yes, it is really interesting. And, I have this intent to focus on my breath. So I accept that this is really interesting. And also, like, I think my intent is stronger than how interesting this is. And I sort of let it pull in this way rather than trying to push the thing away. So if I accept that it's really interesting, it's really fascinating. But I have my intent as well.
I know I missed a bit at the start, so I'm sorry if anyone has to repeat themselves. But so, say you want to do a meditation, what I was like understanding from what you were saying, Dan, about these things that you noticed coming up for you when you had a meditation about your tattoo, and these thoughts were coming up and sort of like helping you realize how you feel about it. So in my mind, there's something good about meditation in that, it silences everything, and then you hear what's actually going on inside your mind, and you push it away because the idea is to focus on your breath. But is it necessary to say, I'm going to do it for 10 minutes and I have to do it for 10 minutes, and if I don't do it for 10 minutes, I've failed? Because if something came up, loads of stuff comes up. No, not important, I'm focusing on my breath. But then something comes along and you say, no, I need to do something about that. Is ending it early a bad thing? Is that like not doing meditation properly?
I don't know. For me, I think as soon as you say that was a good meditation or a bad meditation, you want everyone to be good. And you feel disappointed every time there's a bad one. Like calling it good or bad, it just is. You're just sad. And even like pushing away the thought, saying it's not important, even is kind of like a mechanism that almost encourages, that sense of good, bad. Instead, I don't know, it's kind of like...
has this... So go on.
I was just going to say, it's kind of like you can just go, that is a really important thought. That's really cool. I'm going to try and come back to that after my meditation. And like, if it is actually that important, you will. Like, you'll remember. It'll come back to you. And then, I don't know, if you just can't do it and you can't sit, like, I think your determination and your willpower and your, like, ability to sit through something that's painful and uncomfortable grows. So, like, to a degree, you try and push through it because that will develop in time, but then also to a degree, like, you honour yourself and you be kind to yourself, and if you have to stop, you stop. Like...
So the idea is that the more you can keep focused, even though there's something really tempting, is that's going to be more beneficial for you going forward. Yeah. So the juicier it is, the better it is if you can just keep going.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's more that I think as you become better at meditation, the thing that was previously so tempting that you couldn't resist it becomes just a thing. It's like the feeling of like, oh, there's a bit of a draft. Like you notice that there's a draft, but you don't have the compulsion to do something about it and follow that thought and go and close the window and stuff, unless you're obviously like afraid to get a cold or something. But you get a more distant relationship to each of those things that seem so captivating right now, so that you're able to make a more conscious choice. And once you have that distance, it's no longer a case of resisting the really tempting thought. Is that the thought is no longer quite so tempting because you have that distance.
I think it's like two things as well. There's like the muscle I think you build, and also what's important for you I think shifts as well, and you start building a space between. I think there's an unattachment that grows from the practice.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what I was saying. The idea is more, or sort of what I'm hearing, what I'm understanding is that you're trying to realise that things aren't as important as you think they are.
Yeah, or that they don't necessarily deserve a reaction all the time.
Yeah. Because I had a quote once where it was like, you should see your thoughts as almost like clouds in the sky going past. And it's like sometimes, they're like important, but it's just like you notice them and then they kind of like, it's like if it's important, like when it's time to think about it again, like it will come up again. But it's not like something that, will cause you like a really strong emotional reaction or cause you to think, think too much around it. It's like you'll come back to it when the time's right. Yeah.
It sure does have so it sets the bar quite low to what's the right place really, or to what is a successful meditation. Because that if you intended to sit down for 10 minutes and meditate for 10 minutes, then if you sat down for 10 minutes and you were intending to meditate, then you succeeded. It's a good meditation. It doesn't matter if your mind wandered and you just thought about it, you were just like obsessed about this thing for the entire 10 minutes. If you decided to sit down and meditate for 10 minutes and you sat down and had this intention of meditating for 10 minutes, it was a good meditation.
I mean, definitely there's like less judgment at the back of the practice. Like you become less likely to label things as good or bad. Like it feels
observations.
Observations, exactly, and holding the space. Once I think the experience of we get more experience of holding the space for ourselves, for the good and the bad, and that it serves a purpose. I feel like it shifted the way I relate to life in general. So I'm getting a sense, for example, checking out for 10 days for Vipassana. There's there's that feeling of something will go wrong in those 10 days. Like I remember before I moved here, I came here for a month and a half to be with Steve. I did Vipassana for 10 days. And within that 10 days, the sense of like something is catching fire, something is going wrong in the world, like there's something I need to be doing and I am doing nothing. And I feel like that sense of letting go of control, letting go of, and seeing that actually world is okay, you're okay, things are flowing, and even if things don't go well, you have more resources to deal with them, dance with them than you did before. I mean, that's the sense I get, like, the sense of, something will go wrong within those 10 minutes, goes into an hour, and then days, and then, I think, for me, I feel like it changes my relationship to life. And something else I want to bring, and I'm conscious of the time, but it's something I found challenging when I first started, was also grounding myself. So I found it tempting. I had some really intense experiences when I started meditating, where I could talk about, but like I remember floating for a week. So I just want to put it out there that while exploring, also make sure you keep yourself grounded, and in that I mean, what do I mean? What can I do? What can you do? So be mindful of it. If you have something, experience of very intense experience, maybe come and grab someone who's experiencing meditation and share with them what's going on for you. I mean, this excites me that there's something out there.
What I found was when I was doing the SAS, especially the first weekend, which is like there's something meditative about circling, and the like 4 solid days of doing that all day long is really like, can send you floating through the cosmos and stuff. So what I did is every evening I would do 2 things, which was one, spend about an hour on the phone with Alina, sort of ground myself back in reality, to reconnect to like this is the real world. Yeah, there's this cycling workshop that I'm going to where like, you know, somewhere up in the stars and stuff, but there's also the real world, and I'm reconnecting to it every day. And then I would write it all down in my diary as well, to sort of like, again, like set it down and make it, like get it, like get this kind of sense of distance from it, so it doesn't just capture me in this other direction. Although I don't think that's very likely to happen with 10 minutes of meditation a day. But you never know, I suppose.
You never know.
It's really interesting to hear each of those for you, because what I get from meditation is almost, I do get that like really intense, like everything is one and I'm floating and things are tingling and I can feel a bird singing, and that's a part of me kind of weirdness as well. But I feel like most of the time I'm in this airy-fairy, ungrounded state, and then actually sitting, being focused entirely on reality, like in the moment, brings me back to, brings me to birth kind of thing. But yeah, I think like the main thing is, like for I don't know, when you're looking at like this meditation thing, like people talk about meditation, they use language that is, you know, unique to meditation, they describe things. It always used to seem really overwhelming to me. I'd be like, oh, well, I can't meditate, like that's a big thing, like that's this thing that people have a skill for, and you know, like how do you make that happen? And yeah, like what's the right, what's the wrong, how do I know it's meditation, whatever. It's, I don't know where I'm going with this, but it's literally just reality. Like it's literally just observing reality, feeling it. There's other things, you know, maybe you're not attaching, maybe you're not judging, maybe you're not reacting. And that's stuff that comes as your practice like develops and you notice that, but it's literally just reality. Like there's no magic, there's no trickery. This concept of floating or dissolving is like, it's maybe something that you'll feel and it's maybe not, but that's not actually meditation. That's just something that sometimes people experience. Yeah, and like it's not even the aim. Like in fact, we like on Vipassana retreat, like you learn, like that's not the aim. Like if that happens, kind of don't feel good about it. Like there's a risk of attaching to that state of mind, and then that's not meditation. That's like clinging and craving and all the things that we're trying to get away from by meditating. But yeah, I don't know, like. Just, yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Just be like, be gentle on yourself and kind, and like maybe you're not meditating, maybe you are, who knows, just like keep trying, keep learning, keep asking, and like be curious and kind and have a bit of determination, and then it kind of like develops, I think.
I want to share that there's a really helpful app that people have heard about, like some people have heard about, called Headspace, that is actually really helpful for this, like to get a meditation practice going, because it gives you this kind of guided meditation. So like what I was doing earlier was a guided meditation where I was sort of giving guidance on where to focus your attention, what to do and so on, which makes it easier to stay present, to have that guidance. I think you can. And then and that app is really useful early on to try and sort of get a better sense of what meditation is and build a sort of this initial taste of it. And at some point, it will kind of leave you on your hunger, and that's okay. And then you've got the next step, which is for example, the Juladesa book, or joining a community of practice of meditation. Maybe there will be a community of meditators in Grantry by the time you get to that stage. Who knows? There's already some attempts to create one, I think. But the app can be a really great way to get you started initially, because it's got these kind of 10-minute guided meditations. And then you can pay like $9 a month to get access to other levels that they have, which build up to about 20 minutes meditations. And I mean, my experience was I did that, and then I found that I wasn't really, like I started going towards the silence meditations that Headspace offers. And then I found that I didn't really know enough what I was doing, and I stopped meditating for a while. And then somebody recommended me that book, and that finally explained what I was trying to do in the silent meditations and gave me a framework to work with. But the Headspace was a really important part of getting started, so I'd recommend it to begin with, if you don't know how to start.
Thanks, Dan. I have a call, so I have to go.
Yeah, me too.
I'm reading as well.
Thank you.
It feels like an actual art here.
Excellent.
I'm going to choose. I'm going to believe that you're running off to do a 10-minute meditation.
I'm going to do a 7-hour meditation. Thanks a lot.
Maybe a bit of mind wandering.
Hey?
Right. You may experience a bit of mind wandering if you do
Yeah. Hopefully.
Cool.
Will you put the notes about the book in?
Yeah, I'll put the link to the book in the People and Culture channel.
Okay, great. Thank you. Cool.
And I'll mention the headspace out there as well.
Brilliant. Alright, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Dan.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks very much, Dan. Bye.
Bye, everyone.